I'm dedicating this mini-series to a single, legendary and unbroadcast piece of British comedy history. Someone who knows that I research and review old and sometimes forgotten TV sitcoms anonymously provided me with a copy of a studio recording. It has clearly originated from the studio master tapes. You get the feeling it was something the BBC never intended anyone to see, and once you hear the full story, you'll understand exactly why. In February 1984, BBC producer Martin Shardlow commissioned Johnny Speight to write a 30-minute comedy pilot titled Harry Moon Conglomerates, with an option for a full series. It was to co-star Tommy Cooper and Eric Sykes. Cooper was to play the owner of a joke shop and Eric rents the room upstairs. He's a wheeler dealer whose talent agency acts for the front of an assortment of crooked business opportunities. The show derived its working title, Harry Moon Conglomerates, from Eric's dodgy business. Sadly, shortly before the pilot was due to be recorded, Tommy Cooper collapsed on stage during his performance on ITV's Live from Her Majesty's on Sunday the 15th of April 1984. He was pronounced dead on arrival at hospital. Still keen on a new Speight sitcom, in September 1984, BBC head of comedy Gareth Gwenlan commissioned a completely new script with the same title. This meant Speight was paid twice for the same project, all while he was busy penning the pilot for the return of Alf Garnett in Sickness and in Health. By January 1985, internal BBC memos showed the working title of the project had changed to Sykes Milligan Pilot, reflecting the casting of Spike Milligan to co-star with Eric Sykes. Eric would still be a dodgy businessman renting an upstairs room, but the joke shop was abandoned in favour of a cafe. As the studio was prepared for the February 1985 recording date, the production finally took on its controversial, parodoric and final name, The Jewel in the Crown, Southall, Middlesex. It was recorded on the 24th of February 1985 and, as was normal for the time, had a studio audience, probably 200 to 300 people. However, a series was not commissioned and the pilot episode was never broadcast. That isn't necessarily unusual. Some pilots are made just for TV executives to assess the potential of a new show. But this time it was different. It seems that not much was known outside of the cast and production team about the pilot even existing until relatively recently, so no one really knew it had not been broadcast. Earliest date I can find any public mention of the pilot existing is on the Missing Episodes forum in November 2003. Then nothing else until November 2019, when it was uploaded online and was then mysteriously deleted. If you're a classic British comedy fan, you will recognise the people involved. The visionary Spike Milligan, the brilliant Eric Sykes and the controversial writer Johnny Speight. All three were highly influential figures in British comedy, yet their work frequently courted controversy, particularly concerning racial themes. Spike Milligan was the co-creator and principal writer of The Goon Show for radio and a pioneer of surreal sketch comedy with his Q television series, which influenced later acts like Monty Python's Flying Circus. Despite his innovative contributions, Milligan's career was also marked by recurring controversies, particularly involving racially insensitive portrayals. A notable example is his role in the 1969 London weekend television sitcom Curry and Chips, where Milligan appeared in Brownface. The series was written by Johnny Speight and also starred Eric Sykes. Johnny Speight was a highly influential radio and television writer. His most iconic creation was Alf Garnett in Till Death Us Do Part, a character described as a reactionary white working class man who holds racist and anti-socialist views. Speight's claimed intention was to satirise and ridicule such bigotry. However, a significant and problematic proportion of the audience unfortunately identified with and even sympathised with Alf's views. It is significant that Speight chose the title The Jewel in the Crown, as there'd been a television adaptation of Paul Scott's acclaimed Raj Quartet, the jewel in the crown, the previous year, the environment that Spike had grown up in. Milligan and Speight shared a significant professional history. Speight and Milligan both wrote for the series Sykes and A that starred Eric Sykes. Milligan and Sykes themselves had a long-standing collaboration, notably writing the Goon Show scripts. This wouldn't be Speight's last attempt with a controversial sitcom. He would go on to write the decade's most infamous and short-lived sitcom, The 19th Hole, broadcast in 1989. With 3 such prominent figures involved, this should have been a major BBC event, but it wasn't. The pilot opens with shots of various London theatres showing the names of the shows, mostly musicals. Most of these shots were clearly taken from a moving vehicle, meaning it wasn't necessary to spend time and effort setting up a camera to get a clear view of the locations. However, the movement does add to the busy showbiz environment of London's theatreland. The accompanying music is On Stage Please by David Lindup, a very upbeat, theatrically influenced tune with a rousing introduction moving into a section that very much sounds like the overture to a big musical show. The sequence ends on a theatre billboard showing the title of the show, The Jewel in the Crown, Southall, Middlesex, then by Johnny Speight. This changes to starring Eric Sykes, Spike Milligan. This highly theatrical theme continues as a chessboard transition reveals Spike's reflection in what resembles a theatre dressing room mirror surrounded by lights. It becomes clear that Spike has applied brownface makeup and is now adding white to his lips. This is not carefully crafted makeup that could be described as an authentic depiction of a black or Asian person. There is some bare flesh around his neck and ears. He has the appearance of the controversial black and white minstrels. The Black and White Minstrel Show was a variety show with blackface performers broadcast by the BBC from 1957 to 1978. The BBC axed the programme in response to a heightened sense of awareness of its racist associations. Spike is wearing a turban. It's not wound on like a real turban, it fits like a hat. It seems to have loose bits. It might even be made from toilet paper. This refusal to treat the prop or the scenario seriously immediately undermines the premise. Then Eric enters. Spike puts on white gloves and says, "Wish me luck, Eric," as if he's about to perform on stage. Then he leaves singing, "Wish me luck as you wave me goodbye" with comedy vibrato. This is a classic Milligan meta-gag. It immediately establishes the low-budget, self-aware, Goon Show style deconstruction of television itself. This is an immediate tonal mismatch. The opening titles promised a big-budget West End spectacular, and what we're getting is a blacked-up Spike in a moth-eaten turban. Milligan, in particular, breaks character and corpses several times, particularly while referring to the Kama Sutra being the reason why so many people from India are blind. This is typical of Milligan's TV work, to remind the audience they're watching a performance that is barely being held together. Unusually for a BBC sitcom of the period, Spike Milligan and Eric Sykes appear not as fictional creations, but as heightened versions of themselves. Their contracts state the parts are Spike and Eric. The pilot plays with this semi-autobiographical framing, blurring the line between performer and persona in a way that feels both casual and quietly experimental. Early in the episode, Eric says, "You know what's sad? It's really sad. Spike Milligan, internationally known, changed the face of comedy, and to end up like this." To which Spike replies, "This isn't the end, this is just a male dramatic menopause. What about that show you was in? I Love Hattie, 20 years you were in that, and what have you got?" I Love Hattie is a fictional TV show presumably intended to satirise Eric's many cosy TV sitcoms, especially Sykes and A and Sykes, that both featured Hattie Jakes. The entire theatrical opening sequence was just a device to delay revealing the reason for Spike's makeup. He is not going on stage, but into a very seedy, greasy spoon style cafe. He enters the cafe and plays a gramophone record of the type of music often heard in an Indian restaurant. Spike says he's opening up a Pakistani restaurant. Eric tells him a transport cafe is more his style. A crucial moment features Milligan explicitly stating his rationale. All those Pakistanis come over here and steal our jobs, right? Well, I've opened up a Pakistani restaurant and I've blacked myself up every night and I steal some of their bloody jobs. There was uneven laughter from the studio audience. Did they sense that the humour felt decades out of date? What the audience might not know was that this statement echoed Spike's personal feelings. His former agent and close friend Norma Farnes said that Milligan was seriously concerned about the wave of immigrants from India and Pakistan. This was not the first time Milligan had used brownface makeup. The first was as Kevin O'Grady, an Irish Pakistani character in Curry and Chips in 1969. He reprised this character in 3 episodes of Till Death Us Do Part in 1970, 1972 and 1974. Then, in 1976, he was Mr. Van Gogh, one of 2 Asian illegal immigrants in The Melting Pot. That show was so controversial, despite a full series being made, the BBC only broadcast the pilot episode. There were also characters in brownface in Spike's Q television series. Nearly 10 years after The Melting Pot, this was Speight trying to revisit that old formula. Even if he was just echoing the rhythms of his earlier work, it was a comedic style that was both outdated and politically dangerous by 1985. Spike was running, or was planning to run, a fake Pakistani restaurant and, as Eric reminds him, without a kitchen. Eric had not just randomly wandered in, he rented the room above the cafe as an office for his many dodgy business affairs. They had a pseudo-business partnership dynamic. Eric seemed to be the more level-headed of the two, while Spike slipped in and out of absurd racial stereotypes and foreign accents to explain his restaurant scheme. The audience did genuinely find some of the dialogue funny. There were even some laughs for the less racially acceptable material. But this was probably out of an initial feeling of nostalgia for Spike's legacy performances. But there's still a long period in the middle of the episode performed in near silence. The jokes, such as they were, didn't land. There is a definite sense that the audience were conflicted or confused. Was this funny? Should we be laughing at this? Clearly there were times that the audience didn't know how to respond. This mattered. A lot. This was a pilot, a proof of concept. Even if there were issues like cast members that didn't fit or costumes and settings that needed more work, these could be fixed if a series was commissioned. BBC executives always watched the studio tapes. If the audience wasn't laughing, that meant the script wasn't suitable, and a rewrite of the magnitude required here was not an option. Now, while this pilot was made 40 years ago, it is a significant milestone in British broadcasting, not just in the sitcom and comedy environment. It isn't just a bad sitcom, it's a snapshot of a comic era collapsing, a signifier of the old guard finally being given its marching orders. It's a piece of BBC history. More than that, it's a rare example of a pilot that was buried immediately after recording. No one was ever meant to see it. That meant the offenders will be relieved of the responsibility for what they'd created. So I'm in a unique position to reveal what happened and explain the background and consequences. Join me for the second part of this mini-series where we will meet more of the characters, including a stranger that Eric thinks is the health inspector and a girl looking for her break into show business. There's food for all in the final act after a series of typically surreal moments from Milligan that almost work and more racially offensive stereotypes that leave the studio audience conflicted.